I want to take a moment to address some important conversations happening across the WNBA, including remarks made earlier this week by Napheesa Collier. First, let me repeat this. You saw it in my statement, but I have the utmost respect for Napheesa and for every single player in our league. They are at the center of everything we do. I was disheartened to hear that some players feel the league and me personally do not care about them or listen to them. And if the players in the W don't feel appreciated and valued by the league, then we have to do better.
Picture this: you raise a valid concern at work, and your boss brushes you off by saying only losers complain. That's the explosive accusation leveled at WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, allegedly directed at one of the league's top players. But it doesn't stop there. According to reports, Engelbert also suggested that players should be grateful, even going so far as to say they ought to be on their knees thanking her for the contracts she negotiated on their behalf. Needless to say, those remarks lit a fuse. What followed was a full-blown uproar across the league, with players, fans, and insiders all weighing in. The backlash grew so intense that Engelbert was forced into a rapid, and very public, rebrand. Suddenly, the commissioner is all about mutual respect, open dialogue, and valuing player input. But this isn't just your run-of-the-mill PR cleanup. The tone shift is so stark, it signals something much bigger. The players aren't just unhappy, they're mobilizing. And with momentum building behind the scenes, one thing is clear: Engelbert isn't steering the ship anymore. The balance of power is shifting, and the league may be on the edge of a full-blown leadership crisis.
Great these players are on and off the court, how much they mean to our league, our fans, and our communities. If they don't feel that, I will do everything I can to change that. No one should ever doubt how deeply I care about this league, this game, and every single player who makes the WNBA what it is. So we value feedback, we listen to criticism, we remain committed to engaging in the difficult but necessary conversations that ultimately make us all stronger and better.
This entire controversy exploded when one of the WNBA's most respected voices, Napheesa Collier, stepped up to the mic and dropped a revelation that shook the league to its core. During a routine press conference, Collier pulled back the curtain on private conversations she had with Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, and what she shared raised serious red flags about the league's leadership culture. According to Collier, when she brought up concerns about erratic and inconsistent officiating, something that's plagued players all season, Engelbert didn't offer support or solutions. Instead, she allegedly fired back with a dismissive jab: only losers complain about the refs. That statement alone sparked outrage. But the revelations didn't stop there. Collier went on to share even more troubling comments, this time about how the league is treating its biggest rising stars, specifically rookie sensation Caitlin Clark. When asked how the WNBA intended to address the imbalance between Clark's massive revenue draw and her modest rookie salary, Engelbert reportedly said Clark should consider herself lucky. The alleged quote? That she should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the WNBA platform, she'd be making nothing. And just when it seemed things couldn't get more tone-deaf, Collier claimed Engelbert also told her that players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal she secured. Those comments didn't just come off as dismissive, they were borderline contemptuous. For many, it felt like a slap in the face to the very athletes who put their bodies, reputations, and futures on the line to grow the league. Collier's revelations weren't just shocking, they were a wake-up call. They painted a picture of a commissioner who seems dangerously out of touch with the athletes she's supposed to lead. And now, the league is left grappling with the fallout.
Minnesota Lynx star Napheesa Collier blasted WNBA leadership in her exit interview on Tuesday, accusing league commissioner Cathy Engelbert of being, quote, negligent in her governance. A moment ago, Caitlin Clark spoke on the matter. Take a listen.
First of all, I have great respect for Fee, and I think she made a lot of very valid points. And I think what people need to understand, we need great leadership in this time across all levels. This is straight up the most important moment in this league's history. This league's been around for 25 plus years, and this is a moment we have to capitalize on. So that's honestly what I would say. I think Fee said it all with what she said, and I think the points she made were very valid.
Napheesa Collier's powerful revelations didn't just spark headlines, they lit a fire across the entire league. What started as one player bravely speaking out quickly evolved into a movement. One by one, athletes across the WNBA began stepping forward, turning what could have been seen as an isolated incident into a collective call for accountability. This wasn't just about Collier anymore, it was about every player who'd felt dismissed, unheard, or overlooked. Indiana Fever's Sophie Cunningham was among the first to publicly back Collier, and she didn't mince words. Frustrated and unfiltered, Cunningham said flat out, "I'm just tired of our league." She criticized the people in power at the WNBA, saying that while some may be savvy business minds, they clearly lack a deep understanding of the game, and of what players are truly dealing with. And the support didn't stop with veterans. Even the league's brightest young star, Caitlin Clark, weighed in. In a carefully crafted but undeniably impactful statement, Clark threw her support behind Collier, saying, "I have great respect for Fee, and I think she made a lot of very valid points." She went on to say this is a defining moment in the WNBA's history, one that demands strong, thoughtful leadership. Coming from Clark, whose influence extends far beyond the court, that message hit hard. Then came Aya Wilson, another face of the league, who added her voice to the growing chorus of frustration. Her own statements echoed the sentiment that something is broken at the top, and that silence is no longer an option. At that point, it was undeniable, this wasn't a behind-the-scenes disagreement, it had become a full-scale, public revolt. The players were no longer just asking for change. They were demanding it.
As it relates to officiating and gameplay on the court, we hear the concerns, we take them seriously. Our game is faster, featuring more talent, and the game is more competitive than ever before. And with that evolution, game rules, interpretation, and officiating has to keep pace. Every major sport goes through this. Rules evolve, officiating adapts, standards shift. Alongside the growth of the game, the WNBA is no different. At the conclusion of the season, as we do every year, the league's competition committee will meet to evaluate the state of the game, which includes game rules, officiating, and player safety on the court.
With pressure mounting and the league in the midst of a player-led uprising, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert finally stepped into the spotlight during the WNBA Finals press conference. What followed was a calculated attempt at crisis management, a carefully orchestrated display straight out of the corporate playbook. The version of Engelbert that faced the cameras was a stark contrast from the one players described behind closed doors. This time, she projected empathy, respect, and a sudden concern for player voices. She opened by expressing disappointment, not in her own conduct, but in hearing that players felt unheard or unvalued by league leadership. Her tone was measured, her words rehearsed, and her message clear: damage control was now the top priority. Then came the big announcement, a new State of the Game committee. Its mission? To address the very officiating concerns that athletes had been raising for months, concerns that, until now, were reportedly met with ridicule. Engelbert positioned the committee as a solution-driven step forward, promising it would include players and other key stakeholders in shaping the league's direction. But to many watching, it felt more like a symbolic gesture, an effort to appear responsive without directly acknowledging past missteps. When it came to the most damning allegation, that she belittled Caitlin Clark's earnings and told players to be thankful, Engelbert issued a flat denial. But her answers to other critical questions were far less direct. Time and again, she leaned on a familiar deflection: there's a lot of inaccuracy out there. It was a tightly controlled performance, one designed to project calm and confidence. But for those closely following the story, it raised more questions than it answered. Was this genuine reflection, or just a carefully staged pivot to keep the league from spiraling further?
Stakeholders' eyes. There are no greater stakeholders than our players. Their voice is integral to the alignment that is required for good officiating, and we look forward to including their perspectives on how our staff can better serve the game moving forward. So through the competition committee and the State of the Game committee I've mentioned, we will take a hard look at what the proper line should be for good, aggressive play that we recognize has evolved into rough play, and how to calibrate the line for legal and illegal contact to ensure player safety and exciting competition.
What would become the most scrutinized moment of her entire press conference, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert tried to shift the narrative from embattled executive to sympathetic human being. "I'm a person, too," she said. "I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments." It was a plea for empathy, but instead of softening criticism, it landed flat. To many watching, the irony was impossible to ignore. While Engelbert spoke of her children being hurt by online backlash, the players she's tasked with protecting are dealing with real, lasting consequences: risky physical play, inconsistent officiating, and what they describe as years of being ignored or dismissed. Her attempt at relatability only magnified the growing disconnect between league leadership and the athletes on the front lines. Let's be honest about what's really driving this firestorm: the Caitlin Clark factor. Engelbert's sudden tone shift didn't come from a place of revelation, it was a business move. Clark's entry into the WNBA has been nothing short of revolutionary. She's boosting TV ratings, setting merchandise records, and bringing the league unprecedented national visibility. In short, she's not just a rookie, she's an economic force. That's what made Engelbert's alleged remarks about Clark being lucky to earn money outside the league so damaging. Not only were they dismissive, they came off as out of touch and entitled, as if Engelbert deserved credit for a phenomenon she didn't create. Praising Clark as transformational during the press conference felt less like genuine admiration and more like a desperate attempt to walk back from a misstep that could cost the league its brightest star. But the players weren't buying it. For them, the commissioner's performance wasn't an apology, it was spin. And that sentiment only grew louder after Engelbert dodged direct questions, relied on vague denials, and claimed a lot of inaccuracy was floating around, without ever squarely addressing the specific allegations brought forward by Nafisa Collier. The fallout was immediate. Players, already united, began speaking with more force and more urgency. Indiana's Sophie Cunningham put the league on high alert, warning that a lockout could be on the horizon if change doesn't come. Her words were clear: "We're not playing until they give us what we deserve." With the league's collective bargaining agreement nearing expiration, the threat wasn't just symbolic. It was strategic. And this fire didn't stay inside the league. Major sports media outlets jumped on the story. Stephen A. Smith called for Engelbert to step down. On social media, fans overwhelmingly sided with the players. The hashtag #FireCathy began trending, and clips from the press conference were picked apart and ridiculed in real time. Engelbert's credibility took another hit when observers noticed she never explicitly denied all of Collier's claims, adding to a growing sense that the damage couldn't be undone with words alone. Even more telling was the silence. While many players publicly backed Collier, some of the league's most established superstars stayed quiet. They didn't rush to Engelbert's defense, and that silence spoke volumes. In a league where star power drives influence, the absence of vocal support from marquee names was a quiet but powerful vote of no confidence. This wasn't just a spontaneous eruption, it was the climax of long-building frustration. For years, WNBA players have voiced concerns about how league priorities often favor business metrics over athlete well-being. They've questioned the lack of transparency in decision-making and the sense that their voices were secondary. Engelbert's alleged remarks simply lit the match that set years of simmering tension ablaze. Her abrupt pivot, from dismissive executive to suddenly reflective commissioner, wasn't just a media maneuver. It marked a shift in the balance of power. Players like Nafisa Collier, with backup from stars like Caitlin Clark and Aya Wilson, have reclaimed the narrative. They're not just part of the league, they're taking ownership of it. And this movement isn't just about one controversial press conference or a few poorly chosen words. It's about an entire generation of elite athletes demanding respect, transparency, and the kind of investment their talent deserves. They're no longer content being used as marketing tools, they want a seat at the table. The real question now isn't whether Cathy Engelbert can hold on to her job. It's whether league leadership as a whole is ready to evolve. Because the future of the WNBA is no longer something being handed down from the top. It's being written by the players, loudly, boldly, and without apology. And they're demanding a league that finally puts them first.